Hello and welcome back to the Blame Game. Super Week this weekend was pretty crazy. There were some big upsets. There were some teams that flew up the standings, some teams dropped like a rock, and some of those results were caused by what fans identified as a lack of proactivity. Before we dig into the topics today, I want to remind everyone that I record these live on Twitch. That's right, you have my Twitch chat on stream. Look how much fun we're having, spamming emotes and stuff. Woohoo! I record them on Mondays around 11 a.m., so make sure to tune in then if you want to catch them. Also, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, ding the bell. Someone's subbing right now in the middle of me recording. Fun. First up is Team Liquid's loss at the hands of Golden Guardians. Fresh off Jat and I predicting them to only drop one more game the entire rest of the split. Yikes. But to be fair, we expected Core JJ to be playing, not Ayla. But even then, I think most fans would have predicted them to beat Golden Guardians, and they were frustrated at the lack of proactivity from the team. But is this really how the game played out though? TL drafted a hard-shoving bot lane with a global mid and Hecarim, which clearly wants to force bot dives post 6. Kate and Lux lanes are only ever drafted to be in winning, shoving lanes in the current meta because so many other champions scale better from the bot lane right now. However, Hans and Ayla failed to execute the 2v2 part of that game plan. What makes Kate Lux so strong in lane is that they can both harass champions and push the wave with AoE abilities at the same time. When enemies walk up to the wave, you can hit them and the backline minions with your abilities. This forces enemies to trade aggressively with you to stop Kate Lux from free shoving the wave. However, Ayla neither harasses the opponents nor lands the damage on the minions, and they lose the level 1 shove. Losing level 1 is not the end of the world though, because you can always re-establish control of the lane later on, and like I said, this draft really cares about having the push at level 6. But Hans gets level 2 all-in here and has to flash away. Ayla has a nice reaction, punishing the first blood onto Hans, and things seem to be going okay. The problem with this reset window though is it allows Golden Guardians to get good wards out bot, and when they set up in the lane again, Hans either thinks that his trap is blocking Ole from walking forward in this brush, which a single trap can't do, or he thinks the minions will keep him safe. Either way, he ends up getting hooked and killed. This is a disaster now and firmly sets Team Liquid's bot lane behind. Pride Stalker and Ole work well around ward windows to make sure they have good vision to freely push and deny Santorin an opportunity to find a gank. This loss of bot control also hands over the Dragon stack in priority to Golden Guardians, as well as first move for Thresh to move up and help secure the Rift Herald on spawn. Dragon is coming up soon and they have no forward wards while Santorin is in the top side of the map. It makes Team Liquid's bot lane scared to perma-push bot because they might end up losing their summoners to a gank, so they reset instead. However, now that Caitlyn and Lux aren't pushing, Jinx can match the recall and buy Gale Force while Kate gets basically nothing, so they can no longer contest the Drake. It's a bit damned if you do, damned if you don't for Team Liquid, and there's no clear decision to make. TL finally start making some plays on the weak side of the map in response to Golden Guardians' pressure bottom, but it's still a bad situation when Caitlyn has become so useless so early into the game, and they are trying to increase the speed of the game from here. These plays are still a lot riskier than just diving bot lane like their initial game plan. It felt like when the early game plan fell apart for Team Liquid, it took them some time to determine what to do next. I'll be honest, I'm dumber about the game than Core JJ. When things go bad in a game, finding a way back in is literally the kind of stuff that will make you a world champion. There isn't a clear angle on that Drake reset, and I can only assume that having arguably the best player in the league on your team to help you decide what to do next would have really helped them this game. Diagnosing how fucked you are and how to unfuck yourself in the middle of the game is really hard to do, and it's why teams spend hours in VOD reviews. People noticed a lack of proactivity this game and just assumed it was there for no reason, which is sometimes the case. But I think it's wrong here. Team Liquid's early game plan fell apart due to bad laning, and they struggled to adapt without Core JJ being able to lead them. The second topic this week is Spica on TSM, who had a slow Hecarim game in the El Asico matchup this week against CLG. Fans have been very critical of him this season and his performance thus far, so is there any truth to it? Part of this, I think, is just credit to Contracts and CLG. They had bot and mid lanes that were pushing and putting a lot of pressure onto TSM over the early game. After his first clear, Spica question mark pings if his Gromp has been warded, and hovers bot for a potential gank before continuing his clear. Contracts calls the path out, pinging him along the way, and then meets him at Raptors, and then wards directly in front of Spica's face on the way out. With the mid pressure, Spica worries about a bot dive when Contracts assumes that he keeps clearing top. A minute later, Spica charges through that ward that was just placed in front of him and brush camps in a slightly dangerous position before backing off. All of this bot and mid pressure means that Spica has to split map when CLG contests his blue, but fortunately Huni is slamming the top lane, which gives Spica access to take the Rift Herald. Right after that though, it's back down to bot lane to cover them for some more tragedies that happened in the jungle. It's been a while since they saw TK, but this is a bit disrespectful to assume that Luger would push like this without his Tahm Kench around, and it baits Yerson into blowing his flash and wasting a lot of Spica's time. If you look at CLG's vision control this game, it's pretty insane how much of the map they have covered, even on their weak side. This leads to CLG being in control heading into the second Rift Herald, which CLG is able to pick off Tactical right before. However, it cost them a ton of ultimates to make that happen. I actually like this contest by TSM, given the ult advantage and being able to stall until Tactical is back up. But I think Spica should have wrapped around to the other members of his team in the river to smite contest the Rift Herald. Picking the fight afterwards is fine with all the flashes that Huni is able to force, but Spica goes in on just the Tahm Kench and baits his team into dying. Alright, that was kind of an info dump of examples, so let me walk you through my thought process on them. Listen, Spica is in a bit of a tough spot with TSM here. The CLG vision control made it very difficult for him to make stuff happen, and to be honest, Yerson had a pretty terrible game that kind of boomed bot lane. But I also don't think Spica played particularly well either. He spent way too much time respecting CLG's potential plays and hovering around his losing bot lane, as opposed to going topside to advance his own team's win cons in the split pushing Huni, who was having a fantastic game. Most of the plays he tried to make were already warded, a little obvious, or just slightly misplayed. In conclusion, I agree with some of the criticism that Spica is playing at a lower level clearly than his MVP season, but I also have to acknowledge how much pressure he's under in every single one of these games. The comment of the week this week goes to LeozQ, who called out Jat and I for our predictions, and especially me having my bet with Kobe on the dive. I am definitely going to try and weasel out of that because we thought Core JJ would be playing the rest of the split, but I will not fully back out. My goal is to convince Kobe he should let me out of it rather than completely leave it. If Kobe doesn't let me weasel out, I'm gonna stick in there. That's it for this week of the Blame Game. Thank you all so much for watching. The LCS has been super close so far, and it feels like a lot is still up in the air, so I'm really excited to see where the season goes from here. Catch you all next time.
Well, LCS has officially kicked off, and I know what you're concerned about, and that's just performance. How will North America perform? It's all about perform, perform, perform. Well, listen, I can tell you one great way to get an amazing performance, and that's with an Alienware computer. Yes, you can get the new Auroras available on alienware.com/Travis, or why don't you get a great notebook from them, maybe an M15 or X17 at alienware.com/Travis. They have great performance as well. And so who cares about how we perform this year when you've got the performance you need from Alienware?